Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Michelle Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have David Suarez, MBA, the founder and lead facilitator of Interactive Training Solutions, joining us, a Miami native with an MBA from Florida International University and a BFA from New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. David combines over 20 years of improv comedy and corporate expertise to deliver transformative communication and leadership training. From working at Johnson to speaking on servant leadership at Disrupt HR Naples, his firm empowers organizations with engaging improv-based programs. We'll explore his founding story, how interactive training solutions revolutionizes workplace development, and his vision for scaling this dynamic training firm. So with that being said, the floor is yours, David. Welcome to Founders Future.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I'm really thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. To kick things off for our listeners, David, take us back to the beginning. What specific problem within the corporate training or leadership development landscape, perhaps around engagement or ineffective communication, inspired you to start interactive training solutions?
Yeah, it all goes back to actually a hobby of mine. Something that I love doing and I've been doing for the last 30 years has been improv comedy. I fell into it by accident, fell in love with it by accident, and stayed with it on purpose. So, with that said, I was doing improv comedy while getting an MBA, and I should preface this by saying my previous life included being a former reality TV producer. And so coming out of that world, I transitioned from my arts background, as you mentioned before. I went to NYU, I went to Tisch School of the Arts and studied film there. So I was producing reality TV shows, wasn't loving it. And while I was getting my MBA, I was doing improv. And so every once in a while, different companies would call the improv group and say, hey, we want some improv training for either our sales teams or for our management teams or just for our teams in general. Can you do that? And the finger always got pointed in my direction. And the reason why is because you're the improviser who's getting an MBA. You probably can do this better than any of us. And so I fell into it by accident. And while getting my MBA, I actually took a business writing class that was part of an entrepreneurship track. And this is really the turning point for me. And this is how the business got started. I was tasked with either writing or rewriting an existing business's business plan or creating a brand new business plan for a brand new business. And I thought, all right, I'm a creative guy. That's where I want to go. And I took my love of improv, my background in film and television, and working with talent and crews. So I worked with teams and I also worked with talent and putting all of that together into more of a corporate and even nonprofit facing side of things and taking all of that improv piece where I'd been working with those different organizations and putting that together. I made that my business plan. We had a mini Shark Tank style competition where we had VCs and angel investors and professors involved. And at the end of all of that, they said, you need to start this business. And instead of starting it, I sat on it for 4 years. And I stayed in what I had then was a nice cushy management job. And I was working in a marketing department, so checked all the boxes until one day I was driving home with my oldest daughter, who at the time was 6. And she was talking with me about what I do. And I was telling her a little bit about that. And I said, what do you want to do? And we talked about living out her passions and her dreams. And I quickly realized I'm preaching something that I am not practicing. And so I
Mm.
dug up that business plan and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And within 6 months, I was no longer in my management job. I was now leading interactive training solutions. So that this whole company was literally a project for a class that turned into a reality thanks to a number of great judges who were at a competition that encouraged me to do, and a 6-year-old daughter who challenged me by living to my own principles and practices. So with that's where this started. As for working with clients and working with companies and working with nonprofits and different types of organizations, that quickly snowballed. So in the coaching, training, and team building arenas, as we got out there into the market, it quickly became evident that people needed this. that not only did they need it to be more successful, but they also needed to onboard skills that weren't being taught in traditional programs. So a lot of what we do is we bring the training and the teaching in, but we also incorporate a ton of soft skills and leadership skills, things that are not necessarily taught in your traditional MBA programs. So a lot of times I'm working with other MBAs and people of that ilk, and I'm giving them the skills that they need to be able to be their best selves within the workplace.
Love that. I love the fact that you really it was very unconventional, your
Yeah,
background. I can tell just exercising that creativity, marketing being the first place to do that. What an awesome marriage. I'd love to learn now more into the offerings today, where you've taken the company. So let's get into the nuts and bolts for our listeners and even some
sure.
individual clients. Walk us through how Interactive Training Solutions generates revenue today. What's the core offering? Is it leadership workshops, keynote speaking, consulting? How do you structure what you do for your clients now?
It's a great question. So we have three core areas, and this is integral to what we do. The first of which is training. So a lot of our work is in the training side of the landscape of what we do. We work with everybody from salespeople to what we call our big four, and that's going to be sales and marketing, or sorry, sales and management. Those are our extroverts. That's usually where we're training people on how to be better at what they do, or we're trying to train them to unlearn bad habits and get to their best selves. The other three are ones that are fun challenges, and we just absolutely love diving in on these. And that's going to be primarily where we work with either IT, engineering, or accounting and finance. Those people who generally work back office that do not get out there, that are not customer facing. So, in this day and age where AI is so prevalent, it's so critical for professionals to be able to have soft skills and to be able to communicate as human beings. It's basically job security. So, a lot of what we do on that training side is about getting those soft skills, whether they're communication. We do a lot of training in public speaking and presentation skills. For example, the higher up you go in an organization, for those entrepreneurs who are starting up organizations, you're going to have to speak. And that's our job, is to get out there and help you be your best while keeping your personality. Or if it's sales, it's how to actually help your clients and not push what do I get for me or what is in it for me, the whiffum of all of this. And then when we talk about those other three pieces, it's really about saying, okay, you flexed your muscle in the back office. Now it's time to train you up and get that verbal, nonverbal communication that is going to help you communicate not only externally, but also internally, as you need to be more and more effective at interfacing with other human beings. So all of that falls into our training side. From our coaching side, coaching has been such a huge space for us, especially coming out of the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, a lot of people were looking at coaching as something more akin to what's wrong with me.
Mhm.
And coming out of the pandemic, coaching has really taken a turn and lost its stigma of being something that is corrective or punitive and really being something that is about flexing and building up. So I often tell coaching clients before we ever start, think of a coach like this. If you went to a gym and you hired a personal trainer and you wanted to work on a specific muscle group, you would tell that trainer, this is what I want to work on. And that's what you would do to get stronger. It's the exact same thing, only we do this in a professional setting, specific to leadership skills, management skills, and primarily team dynamics, how to make your teams even stronger. And then team building. Team building is always the first thing to go in a bad economy and the last thing to come back in a good economy. But it's one of the most important things that organizations can do for their people. Team building is what ties the bonds between people and gets them to be their best selves together and to collaborate. So, team building is something that usually is looked at as a luxury item, but something that we feel is really integral to making great teams amazing.
I love that. And what's interesting too, there's so much talent out there. And I know public speaking is probably not everyone's strength or forte or just communication in
Right.
the workplace. But it's such a great mission to be a part of, really empowering those individuals to unlock that skill set so that they can be just the best at what they do and they're able to showcase that and vocalize that because sometimes it often comes down to that in the workplace culture. So that's Phenomenal. Now, building on some of the traction with your clients, how are you currently acquiring customers and clientele right now? Which channels, whether it is your own South Florida HR network, LinkedIn engagement, or referrals, have been the most effective for landing contracts?
Yeah, great question. Currently, our biggest share of all of our client base and all of our new business comes a lot from referrals. We've been doing this now for 17 years and we've been out there. So in the beginning, we had to go and really roll up the sleeves and get out there and do everything possible from SEO to public workshops to networking, you name it, we did it. In this day and age, a big part of what we do is getting out there and working with our clients. And as they move on to different organizations, then we move on with them. But we also stay back at the old organization as well. Another big thing for us, and something that I've been doing a lot more of personally, is public speaking. As we get out there, one of the things that I put on my checklist for the last 3 years is getting more involved in public speaking, traveling is wherever it's needed to happen. I'm going to go. But getting out in front of people, especially if you are a thought leader in your area or what you're an expert in or your industry, if you are a thought leader and you can deliver value to people in a public forum, that's your best way to go ahead and credential yourself and give that proof of you are who you say you are and you can do what you say you can do. So that's a big one. Those two pieces, referrals, public speaking. The third piece, and this is really the one that's been very exciting, is engagement. It's just engaging in different professional organizations. So whether they're alumni groups or whether they've been professional organizations in regards to a lot of our clients are HR professionals. So getting involved in those groups allows us to really be boots on the ground with them and to be able to solve their problems in a very conversational setting. And that's how we usually get brought in. So it's a very passive model right now, but it's one that's extremely effective. I'll put it to you this way. Back in the day, for every 10 proposals that went out, our close rate would usually be around 6 to 7 for those 10. So 60 to 70%. Now it's 90 to 100. And it's because people already know us or people have already vetted us and they know of our work. And it's a lot easier to close our deals.
I love that. So, from what it sounds like, a lot of your own thought leadership and really just your own brand awareness has been like one of the levers to really like having easier conversations and like, removing those sort of barriers when there's that unfamiliarity. Now, from what it sounds like, you've built an impressive reputation within Florida and Miami specifically. For the listeners and some of the founders that are still trying to find their footing essentially, if there was like a bottleneck that stood out to you, what would it be for expanding interactive training solutions? On that note, is it expanding beyond Florida, managing service delivery, finding qualified leads? What are you most focused on solving to keep this momentum going?
Yeah, great question again. So, a big thing for us is what we do is so specialized, niche oriented that the people that we have on board that work with us and are wonderful facilitators, coaches, and just all around great people, that's not easy to find. And it's definitely not easy to upskill to do what we do. It takes a lot of expertise in a number of different areas. Plus, you have to have that it factor. But here's what I would share with any entrepreneur listening. Your biggest piece is going to be making sure that you've got great people or great product, whatever that is. It's something that you can stand behind 100%. I know it's as old as dirt in terms of what people have said in regards to sales, but you've got to believe in what you've got. That's number one. Another big bottleneck. We've been very blessed in that through different channels, whether it is referrals or the fact that we work with so many large organizations that have different offices in different locales. So a lot of times we're in New York City, for example, or we're out on the West Coast, or sometimes we'll find ourselves either in the Southeast or Midwest, and occasionally internationally. As we travel to those places, that word travels. And think of it this way, you want to get out there as much as you can. If you find yourself sitting behind a screen all the time, something's wrong. You've got to get out there. You've got to put boots on the ground. That's a big one. And then the final piece that I would put out there for entrepreneurs, startups, whoever is embarking on this beautiful journey of creation is this. You've got to have the confidence to be able to just get out and speak to people about what their needs are and find out how you can help them. If you do that and you become an expert at doing that, most of your work is done.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's usually one of the limiting limitations, I think, and it's always like a mindset block. See, and introverts especially can relate to that. But so much great talent out there. It's really all about overcoming those challenges. And I love the fact that you're passionate about helping that audience too. Now, with everything you've accomplished, what's top of mind now for really growing interactive training solutions over the next 6 to 12 months? What does that runway look like this year?
Yeah, so that runway definitely looks like this. More speaking engagements, those have been not only fun, they've been very productive and very fruitful for us. And it's something that, again, I would recommend to anybody to get out there and do. There's a lot of people who speak already. Why not be another one and get out there and share your own unique bent on what you do? So that's a big one for us. Another one is to be able to take our coaching and training pieces specifically, not only out there and just, and we've been asked to do this from time to time for our clients, not only in an in-person, and definitely during the pandemic, we did it through a virtual setting, but into more of a digital space that can be something that's offered where people can do it at their own pace, at their own time, and not necessarily have to be in the same place at the same time, whether that is virtual or in person. And then I'd say our third big initiative that we're looking at in the next 6 months is as we as we keep growing, another piece will be getting out to more and more events. These are things, for example, like conferences or expos, and really getting out there a lot more. We've been blessed in that we've been so busy that we haven't really had the time to do that. And getting out to speaking engagements, they're pretty surgical. You get in and you get out. But when you go to larger events like conferences, you're invested for 4, 5 days sometimes, where you're really making those relationships grow into business relationships and new business. That's something that I know that we're definitely going to be investing on, not only on a national basis, but also here locally by getting more involved with our own local community. It's something that we love doing. One thing I will share, by the way, and this hasn't changed, volunteering has always been part of our recipe. And it's not a recipe for new business. It's been our recipe for doing what's right. And it's something that we're very proud of. So whether it's volunteering for a specific initiative or organization or sitting on a board in some way to be able to be helpful and to give back to our community, that's something that I can't recommend enough to anyone.
I love that. There a philanthropy and tying that into everything, it's what completes that mission and that purpose. And I love the fact that you're so dedicated to giving back in the community and really outside of the business. That seems to be something that you'd like to instill across your entire team and organization. I love honestly your passion for servant leadership. If you had like a genie in the room, I want to get a bit hypothetical. You rub the lamp and now you have all these unlimited resources and I'm trying my best to do this improv. What would you implement immediately, David, to accelerate the growth of interactive training solutions?
Oh, wow. With unlimited resources, I think one would be this is a great question. And it's a fun one because I love it's challenging and it's also, wow, everything's there. First thing would be the private jet. Definitely fly private. We waste so much time in airports. We do fly a lot and we get out there. I'm kidding about that, but I'm half kidding. It would be a wonderful
So
luxury. But the
true.
rea I think everybody wants to fly private, right? So I would share that a big one would be definitely getting the word out and advertising more. It's been something that's we've always toyed with and we've done a little bit of and we've dabbled with, but it would be fun to do it. That would be a big one. Another one would be able to probably invest more into public relations to go along with that. I'm a big believer in getting the PR out there and spreading the word. Something that we are very passionate about, and you just touched on it, is servant leadership. And it's basically, we talk about it all the time. What got you here won't get you there. And what that means is this is somebody saw that something in you that made them promote you or made them install you into this position as a leader. But that doesn't mean that they gave you the skills to be successful in that position. That's a lot of what we do. And more often than not, when we're brought in to clean up situations, which we do quite a bit, that's the case. People just weren't trained or upskilled with the skills to be able to be great leaders to their teams or their people. And when you have a bad leader, as we now know, we get the quiet quitting. We get people who just retire if they're of that age and want to do that. Or we get people who just they stop being top performers. They
Mhm.
don't see a reason or a point to it. So being a great leader, especially a servant leader, means you're a facilitator. And that's what we train people, is how to be great facilitators. And that is something that I personally, but also I know as an organization, we're just really passionate about getting the word out there, which is how to be a great leader to make your team great. If you make them great, you will be great in return. So it's about facilitation, not about being a traditional leader where do as I say because I'm the boss. If we can get that word out there, we can make the world a better place. People will go home happier and they'll be able to be nicer to their families too, which would be a wonderful thing, right?
Absolutely. You're hitting on all the right notes. Like it starts from the top and then it impacts the bottom, right? No, it's one of those things, like you said, it's overlooked in the workplace and it makes the biggest difference with not just like the individual, but the community and the culture of those environments. And I love that you're so passionate about that. One last question now, because we're in the lightning round.
Sure.
What's like
Okay.
What's one misconception that people often have about improv-based training or executive coaching, especially like around its value to organizations or its applicability in like very serious business settings that, you'd like to address?
Yeah, great question. We get it all the time. So this one is all about fear. And people are afraid of the unknown, people are afraid of change, and people are afraid of being put on the spot. And the fun thing is we do none of those. So that's a big part of it for us is getting that education piece out there of improv isn't scary. We actually use it as a tool. So improv is a way for us to be able to do a number of things. One, take those great communication skills from improv and how do we go and take them over to the workplace now? And let you onboard them in a way that's fun and that is not threatening. So we always tell people you don't have to be a comedian, you don't have to be an actor, you don't have to be funny. You just have to be able to have a great time to do improv or use improv. The next thing that we do is a lot of role play, and we use improv in that fashion to do what we call enhanced role play. And that allows us to really take specific situations that are challenging for us in our organizations and to be able to use role play as a way to not only work through it, but diagnose what those key issues are and then work on them in real time to remedy them. And as we do that, we use role play to try them out in a way that's very safe for everyone. So once we get over the fear, that's easy. And that's really what improv is all about. It's about how do we communicate with each other and really be highly tuned at listening and observing.
Wow. On that note, like that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. David, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us today from performing improv and now founding interactive training solutions. You're revolutionizing workplace development with not just the humor and the lightheartedness, but the impact, and it's purpose driven. I'm super excited to follow your journey over the next year. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses and companies accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you all on the next one.